Hi, class. This is Professor Lady. This is my Sunday grading phase. I apologize. I didn't realize that the video I made for this Lifeline summary paper was only 4 seconds long. Clearly, that wasn't what I planned, and you saw me kind of fiddling around. So, apologize. I wanted to go ahead and cut this one right now. So the Lifeline summary paper is kind of like the the paper that goes like with the unseen words about our class and your development. So, like, for example, I really just did a really basic boom, 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 no fancy drop down accordions here. But the purpose here is that, again, that SLO that we talked about at the beginning of class, that we need to critically evaluate the cultural, economic, political, and historical context that impacts children's development. And that means yours. Again, I don't expect you to do this in the observation because you don't really know that about that person, but you do know it about yours. And this is interesting because this is the way that this class feathers into the next class, which is Child Development 110, which is Child, Family, Community, where all we talk about is cultural, economic, political, and historical context. And so this is like your way to plant the seed and feather into that next class. But this is, I broke it down into something really manageable, and I really scaffolded and laid out each paragraph and try to give it to you in terms that you would understand so you can just roll it out real quick. Again, this is about your life, so I do not expect any sort of AI anything on this. And I will know if it's nice and general and vague and talks about how culture is very, very important and economics is super important. Like I gave you an example at the bottom of what not to do, and I will go over that as well. Okay. 2-page essay, super simple. You're going to do great. Okay. So I broke down this one statement here of our student learning outcome into 4 paragraphs right here. That's it. So you are going to do a total of 6 paragraphs that basically says an intro, an outro, and these 4 paragraphs in the middle. That's it. Okay. So you're going to critically evaluate the cultural context that impacted your development in childhood. And so this term, critically evaluate, is really the same thing as college speak is saying, like, tell me about it and how it applied. That's it. So you're going to tell me about the cultural context and how it applied to your childhood development. And I'll give you examples in a sec. And then for number 2, you're going to tell me about the economic context that impacted your childhood development. How did it affect you? And then critically evaluate or tell me about political context that impacted your development. How did it apply to you? And then tell me lastly about historical context and how it applied to your development. And now a lot of times we're like, ew, these are big words. I don't know really what they mean. Culture is that part of you that you grew up with this identity of a larger ethnic group or a larger cultural group. So, like, clearly I'm white, but my culture is Southern Californian, right? So I have a lot of cultural impacts on me that include the Mexican culture, which I really, really love. I mean, I live in Santa Ana. I grew up in Placentia. So culturally, my son's also Mexican. So I speak Spanish. So it's one of those things where how does the cultural context impact? How did it impact my childhood? I went to Title I schools. And so I got to grow up with a lot of different types of people. And in the 70s, Vietnam fell. I don't know if you guys know that, but there's an influx of Vietnamese to our community. And so I have a lot of friends who are Vietnamese and Black. And so I didn't just grow up in a very whitewashed neighborhood just because I'm white. Okay. Also, like economic context, what does that mean? Context just means the area, or like if we use that as a lens, the cultural lens, the economic lens, the political lens, the historical lens. So economically, you would say, how would I be looking at my development as a person? And, some people, had plenty of money. I have students who had drive a Porsche, that kind of stuff. But then I also have students who don't have 2 nickels to rub together. Or you could say we were doing really well until my parents got divorced and then blah, blah, blah. Or we came to this country and we lived with cousins and then we moved over to my aunts and then this and that. And we couldn't, I just wore hand-me-downs, we never did really celebrated Christmas, whatever. So economic could mean something different for everybody, right? So how did it affect your development? If you had access to money, then you have access to different things. But if you don't have access to money, then maybe you didn't, right? I'm not saying you didn't develop. but you developed in that context. You developed in that lens, in that way. Okay. So politically, people are like, what do you mean politically? I don't remember politics when I was a kid. Well, yeah, we don't always remember politics, but we do kind of remember how our parents sort of reacted to politics. A lot of cultures have politics embedded into religion. It's not really supposed to work like that, but I grew up in a house that was very conservative, very Republican, very Catholic, very we don't do that, and we tithe and we do all this. And so politically, we kind of followed along with like the dominant oppressive culture. And now that I'm older, I don't really do that. Um, so again, political context could mean we came to this country and we were sponsored, and but our sponsor like passed away, so then we had to find a new sponsor, and so we were always kind of nervous. Or maybe you had people who were deported, or maybe you had people who came here with asylum, maybe you had people who came here, from the Middle East, who had different experiences and things like that. So I went to school with a girl who said she had to climb over the mountains in Afghanistan and drink her urine. Like that's a big deal. So like politically, that's a big deal. America's got a lot of problems, but we still sometimes are better than a lot of other options. So however that political thing kind of showed up for you, it did affect your development. So again, just one paragraph, just one paragraph. You can do it. One paragraph is like 5 sentences or so. Okay, you can do that. And then the last is critically evaluate the historical context. Okay. So when was COVID for you? A big deal for me after I got married was 9/11. And before that, it was, maybe politically, it was Reagan and getting shot. And I mean, I remember the Pope getting shot and John Lennon getting shot and all Stevie Ray Vaughan in an airplane accident. Like, I mean, is that historically, did that change me? Yeah, there's a few different things there that made me, I can still see the Challenger blowing up while I watched it in eighth grade live in the classroom. I'm not kidding. It's wild. And so things like that. What are the historical contexts? I mean, people always say like, oh, history was great. Everything was so great in the 60s is, free love and peace and this and in the 50s was one thing. And then the 70s, I was born during the Vietnam War, right? How did that affect my childhood? My parents were living in Europe and then during Vietnam and then came here during 1970 and the war was over in 71. So that changed a lot, And so put there, how did that affect your development historically? I mean, COVID is probably your big thing, and tell us how that, I don't know, kept you away from your friends and it was like super weird. My son hit puberty right when COVID started and he was in the hospital. And so that was a big deal. Like he would write for me, I went into the hospital on St. Patrick's Day in 2020, which is when the lockdown kind of was. And his first lab report said, oh, guess who's going to start puberty? And so he's got those two things linked together. And I think that really affected him. Now that he's 18 and kind of coming out of it, I mean, he barely passed high school. He does have autism and whatnot, but it was a big deal. But now he's kind of settling down. He's almost 19, and it was a big deal. I think it threw off his development by definitely a few years, and not even counting the autism. So talk about that historical context and how it developed. Now, again, I'm giving you guys examples, but be specific when you say historical context affected my development. Yeah, I think we got that part. That's kind of like the title sentence of that paragraph. Tell me how and why. You're even, I'm going to give you the key to the kingdom right here. Tell me which domain it mostly affected. So let's say with cultural context, you could say that is my social emotional thing. Like my family, we were all married in a church. And even though my sister married a guy who was divorced, so did I, she had to get married in a church. And I was like, hell no. You know what I'm saying? So like these cultural contexts kind of pull on our heartstrings. And like even when I was picking to be married in a place like the Fullerton Arboretum, where me and my grandmother shared some beautiful times, my mom's like, your grandmother would have really wanted you to get married in a church. Talk about guilt trip, cultural. Yeah, it's kind of all wound. And then I said, no, grandma, I think would want me to be happy. So I'm a little bit of a rebel. No surprise there. So economic, I mean, maybe that's more cognitive. Maybe there's like, my parents told me I couldn't do this, and it made me angry, or well, like that's emotional, but maybe it was like that was the fact and we just had to live that way. Or political, maybe that's more like we weren't allowed to run around outside because we didn't know if that was going to attract the wrong blood. And so that maybe my physical development, or we didn't have money to join the local soccer team or whatever. And historical could be all three. It's up to you. Use those domains, use the course terms. So I know you know. Okay. So again, so think of the prompts like this. How did culture impact your development? How did economics impact your development? How did politics impact your development? How did historical issues impact your development? And again, I'll walk you through it. Okay. Paragraph one, intro. Introduce it in a general way. I give you a hint. In my childhood, la la la. Or you can write something else. Don't use my words. You can, but you don't have to. 5 sentences minimum, right? So with culture, when I was growing up, culture impacted my development in this way. 8 to 10. You can do it, right? So short on the front, short on the back for the summary. So about 5 sentences. And then each one of these is about 8 to 10. So again, culture, economics, politics, historical issues. Yeah, absolutely easy to do. So again, I'm looking for these. This is the grading and rubric I'm looking. So about 5 points on the front of the back side and then about 8 points. Now I'm considering changing this from 50 points to 100. So you guys do it and moving the actual lifeline from 200 points to 100. So this is equals. So I'll put that out as a vote and to see if you guys are interested in that. Let's see. Sample essay and plagiarism warning. This is what I'm telling you. I had ChatGPT do this for me, and this is what I do not want to say. So, in this class, we covered how kids grow and develop. Okay, no problem. Other influences play a role. Sure, that works. That works. That's a good intro. Thinking back to my own childhood, I can see how these factors impacted me too. Okay. Maybe suggest that you're going to go into some detail as we go further, right? This one says, for example, I would put that example kind of in there. My family's cultural values shaped a lot of my early beliefs and behaviors. Uh-huh. It's too general. What do you mean? Save that for down here and be more specific. And our financial situation affected what activities or resources I had access to. That's a definitely, yeah, we know. We know that part. Anybody's financial situation would access whether you could take horseback riding lessons or not. Okay. Seriously. And then I say even larger events happening in the world around me added to my experience and shaped how I view things growing up. Kind of general, not too bad for an entry statement. I wouldn't do a for example in there because you don't want to be specific in an entry statement. That's too general. It's too vanilla, right? Now I see here in my childhood, culture influenced many aspects of my development, especially through language, traditions, and family values. Okay, that's a kind of a bold statement. Are you about to tell me how your development changed through language, through traditions, and family values? That's what I'm looking for now. I need to see specific examples of that. Growing up in a multicultural community, I told you the same thing. I was exposed to a variety of customs and practices. Well, that is the same thing as saying 2 + 2 = 4. Anybody growing up in a multicultural community would be exposed to a variety of customs and practices. Tell me what that looked like did you go to the Tet Festival every fall because you lived in Westminster? Do you see what I'm saying? Be specific. My family valued both individual achievement and respect for elders, which shaped how I viewed authority figures and the importance of education. Oh, okay. You know, that could be for Native American cultures, Hispanic cultures, Asian cultures. Tell me how. Tell me, what do you mean individual achievement? Like, did they want you to be first place in the spelling bee or in piano lessons? Because both of those are very different cultural aspects, right? Respect for elders, I'm hoping, right? Like we lived with my grandparents. Give me specifics, which shaped how I viewed authority figures and the importance of education. Again, did your family teach you how to disrespect authority figures and disrespect education? So be specific. Celebrating holidays like insert a holiday. And you guys think I'm kidding. People write this and we'll submit it. People will write stuff from ChatGPT and submit it at the bottom and it'll say something about ChatGPT. I'm not kidding. Please don't. It's an automatic zero if I see that, Jess. Okay. Celebrating holidays allow me to feel connected to my heritage and these traditions shape my identity. How? How? How did they shape your identity? How? Because yes, every person who celebrates any holiday is shaped by those practices, but tell me how it worked for you. Okay. Furthermore, the diversity around me taught to appreciate different perspectives and value inclusivity, which impacted my social skills and understanding of others. I attended this last weekend a Thanksgiving where I only knew the people I lived with, but they invited their family over because I'm just temporarily staying with the family till my house is done. So I met a lot of brand new people and they were all very, very different. And it was really kind of cool because for me, because of the very staunch conservative historical, same things every year. For me, I like doing something different. My only tradition is no traditions. So I like doing something different and going somewhere or traveling or going to somebody else's house or like feeling what different people do for different holidays, what the food needs to be like, what the maybe activities need to be like, what the conversations sound like. And so it was really cool that I got to meet somebody there who was born in Israel and talked about like how are American holidays for you now that you're a naturalized citizen and part of our country is like repeating the 1930s that your culture was saturated in. So I got to have these conversations. That's where I would be specific about. I don't just like talk about it in this very general, lofty manner. So I'm not going to go through every paragraph like that, but if I see this vague thing that could apply to every single person that has ever taken my class, yeah, right. So the wrap up is not bad. How about my development was clearly shaped by a mix of cultural, economic, political, historical factors that together created my unique development. Created unique environments for growth. Yeah, that goes without saying. That's like saying if it's raining, you're going to get wet, right? Do you see the difference? I keep hammering this down. Cultural values influence children's cultural values clearly influence my beliefs through X, Y, and Z, while my economic conditions taught me how to be this, or that. Don't give me the general stuff. Give me specifics. Political decisions or fear of the dominant I mean, you could say any of that stuff has to do with you. Don't give me in any of this stuff like I don't really know. I don't know historical events. I don't know how politics. You're going to have to really dig deep and this is what college is for. All of these things enter they influence us even though we don't really see it. Okay? Now, again, it's only 600 words. It's again 6 paragraphs. Give me 2 pages. You guys got this. You guys got this. Okay. So look for, I will put this in an announcement. I also put a vote in there that makes it 50 points or 100 points. And then we'll go from there. I hope this gives you a really good idea of what I'm looking for. And yeah, I believe in you. You guys can do this. This really takes your Lifeline project and like puts like this added dimension to it and like wraps it up with a nice bow. So make sure that you are giving it your all. You can do it. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'm here for you. And I'm really excited to read your papers. That's my favorite. Okay. All right. I hope you guys can see what it looks like on Sunday when I'm working in my office. It's like for about 20 minutes, the sun is like right there. All right. Thank you guys. Let me know how I can help. I'm here for you. Okay, bye.